Breaking news, deep analysis, and the truth the mainstream won't tell you. Right here on Iraqi Dinar Updates. Whether it's the latest exchange rate changes, inside budget secrets, or currency reform you need to know, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button now and never miss the updates that could change your financial future.
The Iraqi dinar is on everyone's mind again, and this time, Sudani is back on TV with bold claims about banking reforms raising its value. But we've heard promises before. Is this time different? Let's break down the truth, the history, and what might be coming next, only on Iraqi Dinar Updates. The atmosphere in Iraq's financial world has been stirred once again. Prime Minister Sudani took to television and made a statement that has reignited speculation and hope among investors, traders, and citizens alike. He declared that the ongoing banking reforms will raise the value of the Iraqi dinar. For many, this is the kind of announcement they've been waiting for, words that point toward a stronger currency and an economy that could finally step into a more prosperous era. But for others, it is also a reminder of promises made before, ones that didn't come to fruition as expected. We can't forget what happened last year. At that time, Sudani made a very clear statement that before the end of the year, the Iraqi currency would have purchasing power and value added to it. Those were strong words, and they carried with them a wave of anticipation. People started to prepare for a potential shift, thinking about how such a change could alter their investments, their savings, and their daily lives. Yet, when the year closed, the reality was that this value change had not occurred. The currency remained where it was, and the promised purchasing power boost never materialized. The beginning of this year brought another twist in Iraq's political and financial landscape. In January, there was a change in the presidency. And for some analysts, this was one of the missing pieces they believed was necessary before any major revaluation or currency reform could be implemented. Political stability and leadership alignment are often critical in pushing through economic reforms, especially those that impact the country's currency and banking system. A new president can bring new momentum or, at the very least, clear the political obstacles that may have slowed down decisions in the past. Sudani's latest television statement seems to imply that the country is still on the path toward these banking reforms, and that the ultimate goal remains a stronger dinar. Banking reforms are not simply about numbers in accounts. They involve structural changes to how banks operate, how they handle foreign reserves, how they manage digital transactions, how they ensure compliance with international standards, and how they integrate with global financial systems. These reforms can have a direct impact on the perception of Iraq's currency both domestically and internationally. If successful, they could increase investor confidence, attract foreign capital, and support the dinar's rise in value. However, the skepticism remains. It's not just about hearing promises, it's about seeing them fulfilled. Many who follow the Iraqi dinar closely have learned to read between the lines of official statements. They consider both the political timing and the economic realities. For example, if banking reforms are indeed advancing, how far along are they? Are they already implemented in part, or are they still in early planning? What specific measures are being taken to ensure these reforms directly translate into a higher value for the dinar, rather than just operational improvements for the banking sector? There is also the question of global positioning. Iraq's economy is still heavily tied to oil revenues, and while steps have been taken to diversify, oil remains a major influence on fiscal policy and currency strength. In times when oil prices are high, Iraq's economic outlook improves, and this can help support a stronger currency. But oil market volatility can also create unpredictability, making long-term currency valuation harder to stabilize. That is why many see the banking reforms as a critical move toward reducing dependency on oil alone, by strengthening the domestic banking system, improving financial transparency, and attracting broader investments. For those holding Iraqi dinar as an investment, the key point from Sudani's statement is the suggestion that these reforms are not just about modernization but also about value.
Hit that
This is a
subscribe button now and
significant
never miss.
distinction. Banking reforms in other countries have sometimes been purely technical, improving payment systems, increasing online banking options, or upgrading security. But when reforms are tied directly to currency value, it means there is a plan, at least in theory, to create the conditions where the dinar could appreciate in the marketplace. Frank's reminder of Sudani's earlier promise is important context. Investors have to weigh the optimism of the latest announcement against the memory of past delays. The introduction of a new president may change the political landscape, but whether that will be enough to accelerate or finalize these reforms remains to be seen. Political will is crucial, but so is timing, especially in a global economy that is constantly shifting. One of the possibilities here is that Sudani's latest statement is a signal to both domestic and international audiences. For Iraqis, it reinforces the idea that the government is actively working on strengthening the currency and improving their standard of living. For investors, it's a hint that the long-anticipated revaluation or appreciation could be closer than before. And for other governments and financial institutions, it is a sign that Iraq is serious about aligning its banking systems with global standards, a necessary step for greater economic integration. Of course, there are other interpretations. It could also be a way to maintain public confidence in the midst of slower-than-expected reforms. When changes take longer than anticipated, leaders sometimes use public statements to keep morale up and expectations alive. The challenge is that repeated delays can erode trust if the tangible outcomes don't eventually match the rhetoric. So, where does that leave us? In many ways, we're back in a familiar position, watching, waiting, and interpreting. The combination of a new president, ongoing banking reforms, and Sudanese renewed public commitment to raising the dinar's value creates an environment filled with potential. But potential doesn't automatically translate into immediate results. The real test will be in the coming months, whether we see concrete policy moves, legislative actions, and technical steps that actually support a revaluation or significant appreciation. For now, the statement is a reminder that the story of the Iraqi dinar is far from over. The political shifts, economic reforms, and market forces all intersect in complex ways. For those who believe in the dinar's future, Sudanese words are a reason to stay engaged and informed. For those who are cautious, it's another chapter in a long narrative that requires patience, careful analysis, and an eye on both domestic and international developments. This is exactly why we bring you the most detailed coverage here on Iraqi Dinar Updates, to separate the facts from the hype and help you understand what's really happening behind the scenes. If you want the latest exchange rate news, insider economic updates, and deep dives into Iraq's financial future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Every update could be the one that changes everything, and you'll hear it here first on Iraqi Dinar Updates.